Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. We've always kept the chickens in the orchard here at Longmeadow, which I planted, I suppose, about 16 years ago now. But in that 16 years, I don't think I've ever known a year where we've had so much fruit. The trees are just laden with them and are pretty ready for picking. And you can see on a fruit like this, which is Jupiter, it's worth checking them to see if they're ready. And the best way to do it is either give them a twist like that or just lift them up. And if it stays on the tree, it's not ripe. But do keep an eye on them, because autumn seems to be about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. This week, Carol finds that with a little thought, even the tiniest corners of the smallest gardens can be a haven for wildlife.
Everywhere you look, in every nook and cranny, there's just the perfect place for a huge diversity of wonderful creatures.
And we visit a garden that is not just designed to be admired and enjoyed, but is also an important part of a healing process.
Being outside is amazing, but just to be in such a beautiful place, it's made such a difference to my recovery.
And I shall be planning for next year by planting out bulbs that will give me a really good display next spring. Come on. These grapes are Black Hamburg. We planted the vine last year, and last year and this year, really all attention has been put into developing the vine. This year, it's grown much stronger. We've got a structure forming and 4 bunches of grapes, which are beginning to ripen. Let's taste that. It's a little sharp, but from next year, we'll start to treat the grapes as a proper harvest, having established a decent framework for the vine. And of course, that will just get better and better as the years go by. Come, Nudge. There you see, perfectly ripe. Slides off the core and slides into my mouth. Lovely. Autumn raspberries are at their very best now. This is a variety called Autumn Bliss. And we have a yellow one here called Fall Gold, which is really sweet and good. And these should go on cropping into November, if the weather stays kind. We've been eating them for the last month, picking great bowls of them. And the beauty of autumn raspberries is they tend to be completely trouble-free. They go on cropping until October, November, and then when the leaves are dropped off, you simply cut them right back to the ground. However, summer raspberries, which have completely finished fruiting, need a slightly more complicated pruning regime, and the time to do it is now. And we have 1 row of autumn raspberries at the back, and these in the front are summer fruiting, which means that they start to produce fruit in June, and that tails off round about the time the autumn ones start in August. Now, they produce their fruit on the previous season's growth. Now, normally, that means you've got a mixture of new growth, which is floppy and either green or brightly coloured. They've got a lovely sort of purpley bloom on these, and brown, quite brittle canes. So the first thing to do is cut off all the brown, rigid canes that produce this year's fruit. So that gets cut out right down at the base. And here's another one, which can be removed, even though it's got a few side shoots on it from this year. And there's another little one in there. The next stage, having cleared all the brown canes away, you want to leave 5 or 6 nice, strong, straight, new canes per plant. It's always really difficult because you've got these lovely straight growths and you don't want to lose them. But experience shows that you don't get any more fruit if you have a lot more canes per plant. The root system can only support so much growth. So by thinning it out now, you'll get better fruit next June, so be ruthless. Stage 3 is really a bit of handicraft because we're going to weave twine to hold these into place. And it is important with summer fruiting raspberries that there is a strong structure for them because they've got to stand all winter and they'll act a bit like a sail, so easily blow around, and they've got to bear fruit all summer. So I've got a long length of twine. Take the first one, and I go round like that. And you can see that I'm fanning these out equidistant. And that's partly because I want to cover the area with an even spread of canes to make picking and fruit production easier, and also to let air through. Ventilation is important. Now you can see I do it as a kind of weaving process and don't tie each one individually. There's no reason why you can't. It's just that it's a bit fiddly. And you have to have lots and lots of pieces of string, and you need to keep cutting them. And these fingers weren't made for little detailed fiddly work. Whereas by having one piece like this, I can keep the tension, and it's nice and tight and strong. Now, I'll repeat the tying process along this top layer, and these will be held really strongly. One of the problems with raspberries is that blackbirds adore them. So we try and keep that particular piece of wildlife out of this piece of garden whilst we're harvesting the fruit. But Carol has been looking at ways of attracting as many varied types of wildlife into the garden as possible. And this week, she's visited Bridget Strawbridge down in Dorset to see the ways that she's gone about attracting insects, and in particular bees, into her garden.
The creatures that visit our gardens don't pay much attention to their size or grandeur. It's the spaces within our boundaries, the nooks and crannies that they seek to fill their needs. These spaces offer refuge to a multitude of creatures, but the question is, who are they and what are they up to? Bridget Strawbridge moved into her garden less than a year ago.
I know, it's really, really pretty, isn't it?
And it's already brimming with life.
So here we are.
Oh, isn't it perfect? It's beautiful. It's astonishing, this tiny little space, and you've got so much packed in here.
The whole point was to turn it into a wildlife haven. This whole area here, the idea here is that this is foraging, you know, mostly for pollinators, but it provides habitat here as well underneath for some of the smaller insects and the frogs. And even the larch lab, you hear this tap, tap, tapping, and it's the wasps coming to get material for their nests. Had wrens nesting here earlier in the year.
Wrens love ivy to nest in. You know, it's ideal, isn't it?
Beautiful. Yeah.
But this is the really fascinating bit,
I know.
isn't it?
Plant pots I've just put there, that they're just, you can see, so covered in spiders' webs now.
Yeah. And I mean, these lovely little stones, were they all here?
No, we put these in for sort of really tiny little mini beasts.
Oh, all
See?
sorts of things.
Wood lice.
But particularly wood lice. Your whole garden is alive with life, isn't it? And so many wonderful plants for things to pollinate.
The plants that I really have bigged up on are the plants for bees, because it's bees that I love. I absolutely adore bees.
Right, what, honeybees?
No, yeah, you see, that's funny. When you say bee, people think honeybee. Actually, there are 267 species of bee in the UK alone, and one of them is a honeybee. I love also the bumblebees and, in particular, solitary bees. The unsung heroes of the pollinating world. This, for instance, is a plant that I have planted specifically for one type of solitary bee, and it's a solitary bee called the wool carding bee.
This is called Stachys lanata, lanata meaning woolly.
And this is what is attractive to the female wool carding bee, who will come and actually card the hairs on this leaf to use to construct her nest. Now, there's a male. So the male of the species knows this. So he will patrol an area and he will actually attack a fully grown queen bumblebee so that this patch is reserved for the female wool-carding bees.
Just for her.
Just for her.
Yeah.
And the reward
yeah.
is that he gets to mate with her.
I've noticed all around your garden you've got these sort of bee hotels,
Bee
aren't
hotels, yes.
B&B.
B&Bs. Solitary bees, especially mason bees and leaf cutters, struggle often to find suitable nesting sites. And this is perfect. That will attract 4 or 5 different species of mason bee and leaf cutter. Mason bees build with mud,
Yeah.
good old-fashioned mud. Oh, oh, oh! Oh, my goodness. OK, that's a leaf cutter.
Do you think she's putting on a show just for us?
She's already filled these 2 cells next
So
to her.
that's where she's been at work already.
The adult leaf cutters will emerge in June, July. They mate. The female will straight away start looking for a suitable nesting site. She will line the cell with little pieces of leaf. She will provision it with pollen and nectar. She'll reverse in and lay her first egg. And then she'll chop little round pieces of leaf and lock off that cell. She keeps going and going all the way to the front. Then she dies. The eggs will hatch out. They will grow as they use up the provisions. And then they will emerge as full adult bees.
So when you see this on leaves, it's not a question of damage, it's a cause for celebration, isn't it? Because it
Goodness me.
means leafcutter bees are here.
This is the most exciting thing in the world for me to come into my garden and find this, because it means at long last the leaf cutters have arrived.
Hooray! But solitary bees aren't the only bees, are they?
There's another whole world out there, the world of bumblebees. The bumblebee life cycle is entirely different. In spring, you get the newly emerged queen bumblebees, zigzagging across the floor, looking for a prospective nesting site. Once she has found her nest, she will lay about half a dozen to 8 eggs, and they will emerge as her first worker bees. Somewhere in the height of the summer, she will start to produce males and daughter queens. They will mate, and the new mated queen will stock herself up, and she will go into hibernation. Meanwhile, the old queen will die, or very often is stung to death by the remaining workers. They will all die, and all you have got left is the hibernating queens. And then they will emerge in spring
And
start the whole sort of
all
zigzag
that
thing
zigzagging all over
again.
again.
We actually had a Bombus terrestris, the buff-tailed bumblebee, nesting in here earlier this year. So that was kind of like the ultimate thing for me, is to have this garden and then to see the bees come and nest in it.
Everywhere you look, in every nook and cranny, there's just the perfect place for one or other insect or creature. It just proves that in a small space you can have this huge diversity of wonderful creatures.
Do you know, the biggest thing for me is just knowing that the wildlife's there.
I think the really important thing at this time of year to attract wildlife into your garden is not so much what you do, it's what you don't do. Don't tidy up too much. That's the best thing you can possibly do at this stage as we go into winter. Leave some cover for every kind of creature. Now, talking about cover, I covered these cabbages with a net to keep the pigeons off when I planted them. And the pigeons haven't eaten them. But the cabbage white caterpillars have had a field day. And because the net was on it, the birds couldn't get at the caterpillars to eat them, so our whole organic balanced system was thrown out of kilter, and human nature meant that it was more difficult and more trouble to hand-pick them off if you had to lift the net every time to get at them. Long and short of it is, the caterpillars have done more damage than the pigeons would have done if we hadn't netted it at all. They're recovering, but they take a beating. However, there will be enough cabbages for winter, but I want to plant some cabbages now for next spring. Spring greens are not a fashionable crop, but they can be absolutely delicious because essentially they are loose leaf cabbage, or cabbage which hasn't yet formed a heart. And if you plant them now, they won't grow much over winter, But they start to grow properly February, March, and you harvest them in April and May. You can buy young spring cabbage plants from garden centres now. These are Durham Early. They are ideal for growing as spring greens. Cabbages respond really well to a little bit of garden compost. I just chuck it on the surface. And the weather and the worms will work it in. But it gives them a bit of a boost. I know that spring greens have a slightly unglamorous reputation. There's sort of a touch of the school dinner about them. But one of the best meals I've ever eaten in my life. And I remember we just had rib of beef, we had boiled potatoes and spring greens, just lightly cooked, with a little bit of butter and salt and pepper and gravy. And that combination was just heaven. Now, about 40 years ago now, my twin sister was in a bad car crash and she broke her back. And she spent nearly a year as part of her recovery in Stoke Mandeville Hospital, which was fantastic. But there was nowhere for the many patients to go, particularly when the weather was nice. In Salisbury, a new garden has been made called Horatio's Garden, specifically for people who've had spinal injuries. And we went along to take a look.
Well, the idea for the garden came about several years ago. My husband David, who's the medical director of the spinal unit, realised that patients really needed somewhere to get outside, somewhere to be in the sunshine and just escape from the ward. Most people, fortunately, who come to hospital now only stay for a short length of time, but in spinal cord injury, patients are here for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes even longer. Our son, Horatio, was a volunteer in the spinal unit because he wanted to study medicine and because he was quite an outdoor person himself. He was quite overwhelmed with how there was just nowhere for them to go. So he came up with a questionnaire for patients. Well, what he found out is that patients wanted a beautiful place to be in. They wanted somewhere to escape from the ward and all the clinical things, the sounds. They wanted somewhere that they could watch wildlife. And just generally somewhere that they could be on their own, somewhere they could share with their friends and family. When Horatio was 17, he went on an expedition to Svalbard, and tragically, the group was attacked by a polar bear and Horatio was killed. After that, there was an amazing outpouring of love and generosity from so many people, which enabled us to create the funds which then created this garden.
Well, Olivia contacted me to design Horatio's Garden. I was instantly interested, not only because it was a very important garden to build for the spinal unit, but because my best friend had spent a whole year here recovering from a diving accident. So I knew the hospital, and I knew the fact that it was quite a dingy sort of place. They didn't have a garden to go into, and so I was delighted, really, on all sorts of levels. I was given quite free rein in terms of the brief. The only restrictions, really, were slopes. Slopes would be very difficult for people in wheelchairs, obviously, so we've got a very smooth resin-bonded surface, which is easy to manoeuvre wheelchairs and beds on. But the paths also had to be quite wide, and that's something that threw me. 2 metres wide to get a bed comfortably around the space was larger than I would normally want to put in a garden. You know, I want to put more plants than anything else. And I thought about shrubs, and then I quickly dismissed that because as nice as shrubs are, I just felt that this garden needed to be a celebration of life and watching the changing seasons. And so we decided to go down the perennial path, and I'm really pleased we did that because it is a high-maintenance garden, but people get so much joy from it because of the changing palette, the changing scene throughout the year. Anything that's going to draw in insects is going to be great. So, you know, we've got Centranthus, Verbena bonariensis. You can see how this has really taken over. And we've got fennel, echinacea, agastache. People just love it. I'm not really a great fan of themes in a garden, but as I was designing the space and breaking the path up with these low walls, Some of them sort of resembled spine shapes, so I actually took a spine shape and created these low walls into these spines. And where the path dissects the spines here, they are broken spines, and suddenly that took on a really strong message, you know, that you've got two broken spines that lead to a complete spine. And it's a metaphor for the journey people make through a whole year, perhaps sometimes even longer, in the hospital itself, mending not just their body. Some people will never walk again, but, you know, just mending the mind, the spirit. So I'm quite pleased with how that's worked out.
Our volunteer and occupational therapy team do all sorts of different activities with the patients in the garden. Hand therapy is really important for patients who are learning to recover from spinal cord injury. Gardening lends itself perfectly to it, so whether it's pricking out some little seedlings, planting bulbs, doing some cuttings, there are so many different things that can become purposeful occupational therapy.
What's lovely about the garden is seeing it being so well used, not just to be wheeled around looking at plants, but seeing all the activities that go on as well.
There have been some really interesting studies that show that being outside in green space, and particularly in a beautiful garden, can improve recovery rates, can decrease the need for pain relief, can improve vital signs, and really importantly, can reduce hospital length of stay.
I mean, being outside is amazing, but just to be in such a beautiful place, it's made such a difference to my recovery and my mood and my mental health, to be honest.
To me, it is to get out and get some space. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's idyllic. The smells from the flowers and the fresh air was just absolutely wonderful.
There are 11 spinal injury centres in the United Kingdom. Salisbury serves the whole of the southwest, but our hope is that we can bring Horatio's Gardens to all the other spinal injury centres as well.
Having experienced this garden and the way it's evolved, I can't imagine going to a spinal unit without one of these gardens attached to it.
I think if Horatio saw this garden, he would be absolutely thrilled. He'd be thrilled to see patients using it for the impact it has. It's a really special place, and I know he'd be delighted.
Well, there's no question that whatever your garden is like, it can give limitless pleasure. And also there's no question that whatever your troubles, gardens heal. September is traditionally the time when you take box cuttings, and that's a good thing to do if you've got healthy box plants to take them from. But this garden has been blasted by box blight. And the game is up, really, as regards the future of box here at Longmeadow. I intend to replace a lot of the box in this garden with yew. But if I went and bought a mass of yew plants, let alone big ones, that would cost a fortune. However, you can now take yew cuttings, particularly if you've got a yew hedge that hasn't yet been clipped. And amongst the other jobs you can be doing this weekend, that's a good one to be starting with. Choose strong, straight shoots and cut them to at least 6 inches in length. Strip off the bottom third of the foliage and place the cuttings in a very free-draining compost. Put them somewhere sheltered, but without any extra heat, where they can overwinter, and they won't start to show any signs of growth until the middle of next spring. It's been a good year for tomatoes, but there are a lot of green fruits. And to ensure that as many of these ripen as possible, remove all the foliage from your plants. This will look drastic, but it will let as much sunlight onto the fruits as possible and put all the plant's energies into ripening. It may not seem a glamorous job, but it is the most important of the season, and that's to deadhead. As soon as a flower starts to fade, cut back to the nearest side shoot. This will promote new buds and colour for weeks to come. And don't just do it this weekend. Try and deadhead daily if you can. Now, I'm about to do a job that doesn't have to be done this weekend, but certainly is best done this month, and that's bulb planting. Here in the copse, we've got a number of bulbs that are working through, and they're mixed up with plants. We've got, for example, really a mass of crocus, and they're over by March, and we have primroses and cowslips they work through, and wood anemones, and I've got some bluebells to plant. Individually, bluebells are lovely, but we appreciate them best en masse. And anybody who's seen a bluebell wood, which is just carpeted with that shimmering blue in late April or early May, knows that nothing else really can match it. Now, it'll take a while for that to be the case here, but it can happen, and we can make it happen. There are a number of things, though, to be aware of when dealing with bluebells. The first is there are two types. There's the English bluebell and the Spanish bluebell. And English bluebells you can tell because they curve and all the flowers hang down on one side, whereas Spanish bluebells tend to be upright and the flowers whirl around them. The bad news is that A, Spanish bluebells tend to dominate English bluebells, and B, they hybridize. So if you live near a lovely bluebell wood, do not plant Spanish bluebells in your garden, just in case they cross-hybridize. It doesn't matter what kind of bulbs you're planting. If you want them to look naturalistic, there are really only two ways to do it. You can either just take a handful and throw them on the ground and plant them exactly where they land. Don't try and reorganize them. It always looks artificial. The other way is to plant them in groups of, say, 5 or 7 in a little cluster, and then another one over there and another one over there at random, and those groups will join up. Well, having thrown those down, I will start to plant them. Bluebells want to go in at least twice their own depth, and at this time of year, the ground is often hard, so what's good about the wetness we've had this year, it is soft enough to get a trowel in. But the main thing is to make sure it's deep enough, and if in doubt, go deeper. Never plant bluebells into a border, because they can and will become invasive. And what they really like is light woodland. So an area like this, which has got grass growing underneath trees or shrubs, is absolutely perfect. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you back here at Longmeadow next time. Until then, bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Plums are one of those fruits that are so distinctly associated to a season for me. But there's always a surfeit, and the best way to store them is as jam. And one of my favourites are damsons. But the thing I most like about them, apart from their taste, is their story, because they were brought over by the Crusaders back in the early medieval times. And they're called damsons after Damascus. Of course, humans aren't the only ones that love plums. Butterflies will gorge themselves on the lovely sticky juices. This week, Carol pays a visit to a garden in Kent, where the beauty of salvias is celebrated in every form.
Salvias are one of the largest genera in the entire kingdom of plants. Almost all of them are worth growing for their extraordinary flowers.
They say that gardening is one of the best ways of keeping your youth. Well, here's the proof of it, because we visit a gardener about to celebrate her 100th birthday and still gardening with enthusiasm and vigour.
I couldn't live without it. It keeps me going.
And I'm going to be resolving a problem area where hedges are shading out the grass, as well as harvesting a herb that belongs quintessentially to summer and replacing it with another that does very well in winter. I'm going to plant one of my favorite early summer flowers, and that's the foxtail lily, the Eremurus, which grows a fabulous spire of flower that, when it's backlit, is incandescent, and it glows and burns and yet manages to be elegant and silhouetted by light. It's a glorious, glorious plant. Now is the time to plant it. Don't wait till spring, because this is its dormant period. So you can move it, get it in the ground. It will start growing in early and mid-autumn. So this is something to do this month, if at all possible. And what you get when you buy the plant at this stage is anything but a spire of flower. It's these long rat's tails of roots with a central boss in the middle. And that's, of course, where the flower stem will come from. And these are very fragile, so you have to be careful when you're handling it. This, by the way, is a variety called Cleopatra, which has got a pink apricot-y tinge to it. Very beautiful. And I've got a space in there. Now, you can see that the soil in there is nice and gritty, which is good. Eremurus originates from Central Asia. That's the area around Turkey, Afghanistan, and it grows on rocky, baked hillsides that are grazed by animals. So it likes good drainage and sunshine. And the animals, particularly cattle, won't eat the Eremurus, so they eat all around it, so there's nothing shading it. So think of all that when you're placing it in the garden. So full sun and good drainage, which I've got here. Now, when you dig a hole for it, it needs to be pretty shallow. And I'm going to put some grit mixed with compost onto that. Now, one of the slight peculiarities of Eremurus is that you plant it very shallowly. Don't bury it deep. Just an inch of soil over the roots is quite enough. So essentially, I'm putting the roots down like that, and then I'll just heap the soil up over it, like that. I'm just going to put some grit mixed with compost over the top, and that will protect the roots and also ensure the drainage, because you can guarantee between now and next April, when it starts to grow, we will have a lot of rain. Now, there's one final job that's important. That is to mark it, because the roots are very brittle. And if you don't mark it, and come spring or winter, you're working in the border, you hear a horrible crunching sound. And that's as my great feet tread on the roots and break them. So I'm going to stick that in there. And that's it. It's completely happy now. And it will start to appear. And what you get is this sort of steeple, this cone that appears above ground. And from that, the flower emerges. Come on. There's a good boy. Here. Squeeze, squeeze. Go on then, good boy, go on. I bought this Salvia Amistad, at Hampton Court Flower Show this year, and it's got exactly the sort of intensity of colour that I love here in the Jewel Garden. I'd like to grow more salvias if I could, but they don't really like our heavy, wet soil here at Longmeadow. But Carol went to Sevenoaks to meet William Dyson as part of her search for the iconic plants that we all love to grow in our gardens and the people who devoted their lives to him. And he has an incredible range of salvias. Come on, Mush, come on.
Salvias are one of the largest genera in the entire kingdom of plants, with more than 900 species. Some of them are shrubs, others perennials. There are annuals and biennials too. Most have aromatic foliage, but almost all of them are worth growing for their extraordinary flowers in a rainbow range of colours that brighten up even the dullest of days. William Dyson holds the largest collection of shrubby salvias in the UK, and he's the country's leading salvia expert. So this border's completely composed of these shrubby Mexican salvias.
It certainly is, yeah. Quite a sight, isn't it?
When do they start flowering? How long they go on for?
These will start off flowering typically in early May and they'll go right the way through into late November.
And which are the hardiest in all this vast range?
Well, a lot of these are hardy, but the real stalwarts, bone-hardy variety, if you like, would be these two here. The very dark purple salvia Nactvalinda. Lovely colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the plant next to it, which is Salvia Jezebel.
People get very worried because they've got a reputation for being tender, haven't they?
They have. If you think about the environment where they come from, we're looking at high altitude, plenty of sunlight, plenty of air, and perfect drainage.
So really, the reason people lose them is because it's a combination of wet and cold, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Don't try and grow them in clay. If you haven't got the right kind of soil, try growing them in containers.
I think they look absolutely brilliant in these mixed borders. But they're a fairly new group of plants as far as a lot of British gardeners are concerned, aren't they? Most people have only started growing them fairly recently.
They have, and I think the arrival of hot lips really was the thing that started everybody on salvias, which is a shrubby salvia.
What do people ask about salvias?
People ask most of all about how do they prune them, when do they prune them.
Yeah.
And the two main periods of the year for pruning are the early April prune. Take that maybe down to about a foot, but always making sure there's new shoots below where you're cutting. And you'll then get a big amount of regrowth.
A surge of growth.
Surge of growth. And
Lots of
masses of flowers. And if you want to keep a good shape to the plant, it's better to actually prune the whole lot off again by about a half. We do it in July.
Yeah.
We call this the Hampton hack.
All right.
Okay, so Hampton Court time, it's easy to remember.
As opposed to Chelsea Chop.
Chelsea Chop, yeah. And this is going to encourage a new crop of flowers within about 4 or 5 weeks from pruning.
Yeah.
And it's not going to give you a leggy plant.
And those pieces that you've cut off, can you grab hold of those and make new cuttings?
You can make cuttings out of those. I mean, better still is to use the growth that comes from the April prune.
Yeah.
Take some of those nice soft tips and root those up. They will root probably in about 2 weeks. Easy as that.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
really?
And then you've got a good long growing season before the bad weather of the winter arrives.
I just love the way they combine with other plants, don't you?
I do, absolutely.
And, I mean, they will have been in flower when all your first perennials were here. And here they are again with dahlias and fuchsias and this lovely thing. That's a salvia too,
That's a
isn't
salvia
it?
as well, yeah. That's a herbaceous species which comes from Argentina, and that's going to die down completely to the ground in the winter and then rocket up from about May onwards to, well, what are we there, about 7 foot high?
Yeah, nearly as tall as you.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt that salvias are wonderful garden plants, but they're also fascinating when you actually get down to the detail, aren't
They
they?
really are.
And where they come from in Central America, I mean, one of the things that pollinates them is hummingbirds, isn't it?
Indeed, yeah. Hummingbirds are very, very attracted to the nectar-rich source within the tube here, but it'll come along and in goes its beak.
Oh,
How those
look at
stamens are
that.
coming down there.
Astonishing. So this is the stamens and the anthers on the end are loaded with pollen, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So that will go onto the hummingbird and it'll drink all the nectar out of the tube and then fly away to another one.
Yep.
And he'll go in and start sipping nectar from there. And the
Right.
pollen might just catch on to the
Inside
stigma.
that top bit
Yep.
is a stigma,
So that's the female part of the flower.
sort of feathery on the end,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And that will pick up the pollen grains and fertilisation will take place.
It's rather wonderful. I mean, why has it got this sort of mechanism?
The whole idea is to broaden the gene pool so that you've got genetic diversity
Yeah.
and you're not inbreeding, so to speak.
Yes, but you don't have any such problems, do
We
you?
don't have any
Because
problems at
you
all.
can
We
cross-pollinate.
can do whatever we like. We can cross anything with anything.
Yeah,
We crossed this, for instance, Salvia Nactflinda,
yeah.
with this one, Salvia Dyson's Joy. And we came out with Salvia Dyson's Gem.
Beautiful, deep purple, isn't it?
Nice colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're currently trying to work on a very, very dark blue, Salvia Patterns.
That's my favourite salvia of all time.
Fantastic blue.
Yeah.
But that in a shrubby hybrid that flowers from May till November, grows to about, I don't know, 2 feet tall. Absolutely perfect. That's what we want.
It's already in your mind, isn't it?
Completely.
And now all you've got to do is create it.
Just create it.
Of course, sage is a salvia. A very beautiful one too. We always let this flower before cutting it back. Talking about beautiful and flowers and herbs, the basil is beginning to show signs of autumn. And of all the plants in the garden, basil is the best measure of temperature because it hates cold. And as soon as the temperature drops, the leaves get thicker and the plant gets less palatable. You lose that lovely freshness that good basil has. And if there's a touch of frost, just a nip, it'll just blacken and you lose the lot. So what I plan to do is cut my losses, say that this will not improve, harvest all my outdoor basil and turn it into pesto where I can store it and then use the bed to plant some parsley. And by the way, the outdoor basil has been okay this year. It's been worth growing, but not nearly as good as the basil in the cold frames. And basil is a tropical plant that likes lots of heat, lots of water, good drainage, some goodness and richness in the soil. Now, to put all that together is really tricky outside. However, let's make the most of it. Oh, look what I found. There's a surprise. You don't want that, do you? Go on. The best way of handling basil is to cut the whole stems and take them somewhere like a kitchen table and strip the leaves off. This is the last of the crop, so the point is to store it as good as it can be at this stage of the year. And that means turning it, in our house, into pesto. Pesto just means paste, and if you use basil, pine nuts, and parmesan, you have a delicious pesto. It's really good. You can freeze it easily and then use it in the middle of winter and just get that lovely, rich taste of summer flooding back. This, by the way, is our second sowing of basil. Oh, that's our cockerel. I got given some bantams for my birthday. They were tiny little things. Well, that's the first time he's crowed. Good on you, boy. Now, just don't do it at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is our second sowing of basil. This was sown in April. This end section of basil is from the first sowing, which was in February. And you can see if I pull that up, that's quite a substantial plant. Whereas when you buy the herb in a supermarket or wherever, in a little pot, they sprinkle seed. So you'll probably have a dozen different basil plants in a tiny little pot. And the leaves will be good and they'll be nice. But they won't last very long because that's what each of those dozen plants wants to be. So buy a packet of seed, start sowing them next spring, space them out nice and widely, and you'll get strong plants that you'll harvest from May right through till September. Right, well, I've got an empty bed, and I don't want that over winter, so I'm going to prepare this and put some parsley where the basil was. Although there's added grit in this bed, which is good for the drainage, I'm adding some compost, and I had added some before, to slightly enrich the soil, because I'm going to put parsley in now. And parsley likes good drainage and it likes some sunshine, but it can take some shade, and it does best in fairly good loam. Now, compost is the ideal thing, and you can see I'm just putting it on very thinly because compost works by stimulating the soil's bacterial and fungal activity. So every time I replace any plant in these vegetable beds, I just dress it with compost, and that literally is enough. This is flat leaf parsley, and the more traditional English parsley is curly leaf. And the essential difference between the two is that this has got a milder taste, and also the texture of the foliage is much finer. Whereas curly leaf parsley, you have to chop up, really. But they're both good. Space it out generously. That's the key to it. Give them a chance. And what that means, of course, is repeated cutting. I tend to harvest my parsley by cutting the whole thing down to the ground and letting the whole thing regrow. And you can probably do that 3-4 times in its life. It's not only delicious, which is the main reason for eating it, but it's actually very good for you too. It's rich in vitamin C and vitamin K, which is bone strengthening, in antioxidants. And so it's one of those foods that is happily a combination of medicine and delight. And you can't say that about many things. Well, if I haven't persuaded you to go out and buy some parsley and plant it this weekend, here are some other things that you can be doing. Many shrub roses put on a growth spurt when they finish flowering, and this can result in long, waving tendrils that can catch the wind and damage the roots over the winter. So prune these back so the shrub has an even, uniform shape. If you're going to water anything in your vegetable plot or on your allotment this weekend, give celery, celeriac and young lettuce a really good soak, as these are plants that will benefit most. And as always with watering, don't water the plant, water the soil. It's a good time to take pelargonium cuttings. Choose a strong growing tip and cut off between 2 and 4 inches and put this straight into a polythene bag. Then, when you're ready, remove most of the foliage, just leaving a leaf or two. Make a clean cut with a sharp knife and place the cuttings around the edge of a plastic pot filled with a free-draining compost. Now I'll pop these in the greenhouse and keep the compost moist, but not get the leaves too wet, because pelargonium cuttings like to be kept fairly dry. Now they say that gardening is the best recipe for preserving your youth. Well, here is the proof of that.
Well, my garden's small, but I love it. I know everything in it, and they're all mean something to me. Although it's not a showy garden, I still love it all. I've enjoyed my life, wouldn't change anything in it. I don't think about being 100. I was born 23rd of September, 1914. I was the 4th of 5 children. My father was a head gardener in a large house, and my mother was parlourmaid. So I presume that's how they met. I grew all their vegetables, like peas and beans and carrots. Potatoes used to last right through to the next season. You swapped with neighbours. Nothing was wasted in those days. It was wartime. I like to think I take after my father. You wonder all your life what he was like. Early 1917, he was called up, and he was killed at the end of 1917, December. And I would have only been 3 years old. None of us remember him, which is very sad. Something we can't alter, but always regret. Well, my husband was a keen gardener, but like me, we were amateur. We learnt the hard way. Right from when we married, we had a garden. We loved our garden, and we used to spend most evenings in the summertime in the garden. I always did the flower beds, and he did the lawns and the heavy work. My husband would have liked the beds more organised than I have them, but I like them natural. This was my husband's favourite rose tree because it was yellow. He loved yellow roses. It's my favourite photograph. He's sitting outside his shed. That camellia, a friend bought me because it was called Margaret. And it's been beautiful. Cut it down, don't know whether I should. It still blooms. I don't do things by the book. If I want something cut off, I cut it off then. I'm usually lucky, I don't kill them. These are seeds I've gathered ready for next year. That's being optimistic. Those are cyclamen, and these are penstemons. I like taking seeds and cuttings. I like to have a little bit of everything in your garden. I have my tomatoes every year. These are called Shirley, and they're doing very well this year. And I have had cucumbers, got one left. But I think there's more coming. I love cucumbers. You can forget your troubles if you go out in the garden for a few hours. I couldn't live without it. I think it keeps me going.
Well, all I can say is wishing you a very happy birthday on the 23rd, Margaret, and may there be many more to come. You're an inspiration. I bet you're glad you're not doing this, though, Margaret, because it's horrible work. This is a strip of ground either side of the path, and up to 5 years ago, this was perfectly mowable grass, just like the rest of the path all the way down the centre of the garden here. But in the last 5 years, the hedge has grown quite substantially. Not up, because we kept it cut, but the roots have grown out. You can see as I dig in, you can hear. I'm just tearing at roots. And the upshot is that it's mud for half the year and a dust bowl for the other half. So I want to make a virtue out of necessity. And you can buy very specific grass and wildflower mixes for almost every kind of soil and situation. And if you're not sure where to go for it, if you look on the internet and just type in wildflower mix for hedgerows, for example, you will come up with all sorts of choices. And what I'm doing is preparing the ground to sow seed for a predominantly wildflower with some grass in it that will cope with shade, that will cope with the roots of the hedges, and will look really nice, and then can be mown later on in the year. And to prepare the ground, all I've got to do is just loosen the soil. It doesn't need double digging, it doesn't even need going very deep at all, just an inch or two. And you can do this in quite a small area. If you've got a patch alongside a fence, a wall, or a hedge that's a bit shady, then you could just do a small area, a yard or two, and that would look really good. And the other great virtue, as well as looking good, is it's fantastic for wildlife. All the unruly growth that you get with wildflowers and long grass is perfect, particularly for bringing insects into the garden. So having lightly dug it over, it just should be raked to get rid of the worst of any lumps or stones. Doesn't matter if it's perfect, because this is not going to be a lawn. Just a nice even surface. Now, I have a seed mix that I've ordered specifically for dry shade along a hedgerow. And that's the amount for what I've prepared already. Now, you can see there's not very much there. Hardly any seed at all. In fact, it works out about 4 grams per square metre. And it's quite important not to sow too much. There are about 12 wildflowers, including red campion, cowslip, wood avens, knapweed, and some grasses. The first year, there will be more annuals than perennials, and gradually the perennials will germinate, grow, and spread. And by about year 3, you'll have the final mix you want. So don't be tempted to sow too thickly. And the reason why you're not sowing too thickly is because each of these seeds, even though they may seem tiny and insignificant, are plants. And the closer they are together, the more they're competing for nutrients. Particularly the perennial wildflowers need to have a good start in life. Now, that's the seed sown. And now, if this was a lawn, you'd rake it. But what you need to do for wildflower seed in particular is to make sure it has really good contact with the soil. And the easiest way to do that is tread on it. Right, that's the closest you'll ever get to see me on Strictly Come Dancing. Next thing to do, water it in. One of the great beauties of sowing any kind of grass seed at this time of year is not only is the soil warm, but there's usually enough moisture, if not from rain, then from dew, to help it germinate and grow very strongly. And then next spring it will take off and the first wildflowers will appear, and hopefully we'll get the transformation from a rather bare, ugly path into a woodland walk filled with flowers. Well, the proof will be in the pudding. Hang around, and next year we'll see. But certainly, that's it for today. Bye-bye. Come on. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. We've had a really fabulous week here at Longmeadow. The days have been hot and sunny, and then first thing in the morning, just as the light is rising, the garden has just been shrouded in mist. And then as dawn comes up, it slowly reveals itself. It's been really good. This week, Carol is celebrating ornamental grasses as she meets one of the UK's leading specialists.
What is so fascinating about them, I think, is that I don't think a day or almost an hour goes by without them changing.
And Joe continues his tour of remarkable allotments. And this time he's with a vegetable grower whose hobby is benefiting all the plots around him.
They say all your bees are on my plant, so yeah, it all seems to work well.
They know they're your bees.
I recognise each one.
But first, it's time to cut my madflower meadow. The seed heads of the wild carrot form this lovely tangle. It's like a bird's nest. Beautiful. And the important thing is that most of the plants here now either have or are setting seed. And then the seed falls to the ground, and that means we get new plants next year. Now, this may not look like most people's idea of what a wildflower meadow should look like, but it is. It's seed I sowed about a year ago, and this is very heavy, fertile soil. And most wildflower meadows are made on thin, unfertile soil, so it's a completely different mixture of plants. And the good things that are coming up, like the wild carrot, we've got some sorrel in there, we've got the silene coming through, some foxgloves, we've got some geraniums, and at the same time, amongst the clover and the grass, which of course is part of the mix, we've got nettles, we've got some comfrey, we've got far too many docks. But whatever is in it, I need to cut it at the end of summer and take the grass away. It'll look terrible, by the way, but that's okay. And then next spring, it'll grow back through with a fresh flush of growth. Right, it's going to be a long job. The critical thing is, once you start to cut, it's indiscriminate. Don't cut round anything, just go for the whole thing, cut it all flush to the ground and rake it up. And to be honest, I started using the shears, but they're not man enough. Or maybe I'm not man enough, there's a thought. It's not doing a job. I think I need a little bit more oomph. The reason for raking all the material up and taking it to the compost heap is to stop it rotting down and returning nutrients to the soil. If the soil is too fertile, the grass will grow more strongly and outcompete the wildflowers. So by removing all the cut material, I'm restricting the growth of the grass, giving the wildflowers a fighting chance when they start next spring. Now, this is one quite complicated way of making grasses and flowers look beautiful growing together. Of course, the other way is to grow border grasses in amongst flowers in your borders, and at this time of year, they're looking spectacular. And all this year, Carol has been going around the country visiting people who've devoted their lives and developed huge expertise in raising the plants that we all love to grow in our gardens. And this week, she's gone to meet Neil Lucas, an expert in grasses in Dorset.
During the last 20 years, grasses have installed themselves on the front pages of our gardening vocabulary. They bring levity, sparkle, sound and movement to our gardens. And what's more, they extend the season right the way through the year. 20 years ago, Neil Lucas got hooked on them. Now he has an enviable collection, and his expertise in the subject is unrivaled. In recent years, everybody's sort of wanted a grass, haven't they? Just for the sake of having it.
Yes, yeah.
But do you think we're coming out of that phase now?
I think, thank goodness, we are. When something is fashionable, it is overused.
Yeah.
And I, truthfully, as a specialist, am absolutely delighted that we're past that sort of effervescence of fashion where everything has to be a grass.
Yeah.
And now we can see more clearly how adaptable they are. And being such a huge family, 10,000 odd species, you know, you have a wide choice.
Who would have thought you could get such an effect with just one grass?
This is the purple moorgrass, Molinia caerulea. It is native to the UK and it's present in just about every county of the UK.
What kind of conditions does it need?
Well, they come from just acid and often wet, those sunny conditions.
Yeah.
But they're growing here in sandy, dry soil, and that's what's so good about it as a garden plant. It has a range of tolerances that allows it to be grown in most gardens.
This is what I love too. It's dark down here. When you look at it from the top, it's bright limey green, and then you get this floating heads above it. It's just beautiful. Now, this is really quite a popular grass, isn't it?
Isn't it beautiful? Japanese hakone grass. This is what I think is so great about this one, is that it actually does very well in sun or in shade and under tree roots, which is probably one of the most difficult situations to plant. And this is a good example of one that will almost cope in nothing. We're a sandy soil here with virtually no nutrient.
So a perfect plant for a container. In this part of the garden, there's loads of miscanthus, one of the most dramatic groups of grasses.
They really are real solid mounds of foliage, and then topped by these rather incredible flowers.
I love the way the flowers develop. I mean, first of all, they can be completely vertical.
Almost arrow-like, and then they suddenly start to open, if you can see just to the right there.
Almost like a dragonfly.
Isn't it so
emerging.
incredible?
Yeah.
Totally different from the flower that you now see up here.
They almost look as though they've been crimped.
They do, yes, or very fluffy is the technical word we use, fluffy. Miscanthus malepartus is still one of the oldest cultivars, but probably still the darkest. Miscanthus ferna Austin is a newer one, a little more compact, but just as dark a red.
I grow them in my garden in fairly heavy clay.
They're absolutely fine with that. They like this, open and sunny, but they will grow in sandy soils, as we are here, to quite heavy clay once they're established.
Isn't it true that this is a grass that's brilliant in the winter?
This is one of the best because it's got big, solid stems and it stands and waves in the wind, and you physically have to cut it down, as we do the whole border here, in about March or even first week in April.
One of the qualities that gardeners value grasses so much for is their ability to move around in the wind, isn't it?
It's one of their prime qualities, I think.
But it's not an accident, is it, Neil?
It is all about wind pollination. Whereas if you take, for example, sedums with their beautiful petals, and they attract all the bees, as you can see here, grasses have chosen a different course of action. They have adapted to their particular niche, which has been very, very successful because grasses cover a massive area, percentage-wise, of the earth.
And when you look close in here, it's completely fascinating. Really do need my specs for this.
Yeah.
Because each one of these little tiny units consists of almost fluffy stigma, the female bit, red in this case, and then dangling down these tiny anthers that look quite sort of yellow or orange. But that's a pollen, isn't it?
It is, yes, yeah. And it's just incredible that detail, close up, they look so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then en masse, they have this wonderful, airy, effervescent effect.
Exactly.
Wind pollination, very clever.
Well, grasses come from all over the world, and you do a fair bit of travelling, don't you, looking for new ones?
I do travel around a little bit, yes.
And where do you mainly go to?
Probably United States more than anywhere else. And I brought back a number of plants over a period of time. Pennisetum Fairy Tales, for example, is one of the successes where it's really done beautifully in the UK. But a lot of the other cultivars I brought back weren't so successful. It gradually dawned on me that what we really want to do was focus on our own selection programme so that we can choose plants that we know are going to perform for UK gardens. And this is one such in front. This is Pennisetum Short Stuff. This one just arose in our growing fields and was in full flower when the others weren't. So it had announced itself as being a good plant for the UK before we even knew about it.
Neil, you've introduced us to so many plants that do so brilliantly in our gardens. So not only do we have the information, but when we see them growing like this, we've also got the inspiration too. Absolutely brilliant.
Now is absolutely the best time to go and see grasses and get ideas of what you might like to grow in your garden. Now, there's one little thing here I want to show you. In this compost bay, the third one along, so it's been shredded, it's been turned a couple of times, is growing very happily an avocado. So an avocado that got eaten, pit put in the compost bin, loving it in the compost heap. Unfortunately, the chances of raising avocados as fruit are pretty slim unless you've got a heated greenhouse and probably extra lighting too. But it's interesting what survives the composting process. However, all this material that I've raked up will compost beautifully. but it's best if you can to break it down. You can see that in this heap, we've got a mixture of grass clippings, which are essentially green and quite soft, and if you just have a great wodge of them, turn into a horrible slurry. And in here, an awful lot of hedge clippings. We've cut our hedges, and these have been chopped up and are composting really well. And of course, at this time of year, there's a lot of brown material. This is carbon-rich material like hedge clippings, like the dried stems on perennials or annuals. When you mix them up with material that's high in nitrogen, and they work together, and that makes a lovely compost. But the only way to get material like this, you can see I've got hedge clippings waiting to be cut up, is to chop them up in some way. We've got a shredder, and if you can afford it and can justify it, they work really well. You can, and we do this with hedge clippings, lay them on the ground and mow them. Run the mower over them, and if you've got a collector, that collects it up while you're about it, and then just put that straight on the compost heap. But however you do it, if you can break down woody or brown material and then mix it in with green, that will make much better compost. Now, I hope you are all making compost, but here are some other jobs you can be doing this weekend. Next year's flowers on camellias, rhododendrons and azaleas are already formed as buds. But unless these have a good soak with rainwater now in autumn, there is a risk that they may drop off before they open. So water them now and every week for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that will ensure you get the best possible display next spring. Now is a good moment to dethatch your lawn. Use a wire rake and give it a vigorous scratch. This will take up any dead material and moss which can be put on the compost heap. It'll also expose the roots of the grass to light and air. There'll be some response this autumn, but the main benefit will be seen when it starts to regrow next spring. If you cut your mint back a month or so ago, you should have plenty of fresh, strong growth. And now's the time to separate a section and pot it up into a rich, free-draining compost. Water it well and put it onto a bright windowsill or greenhouse. And this will give you fresh mint long after the outdoor plant has died right back. It's very much bulb planting season. And as well as planting bulbs in the ground, of course, you can grow them really well in pots. And I try and grow as many bulbs as I've got pots, just fill them all up. But you can also fill individual pots with layers of bulbs. And this is great either if you have a pot or pots that you absolutely love, or if you've got just a tiny space and you want to maximize the color from the space you've got. Now, I've got a couple of pots here which have got a really wide top and therefore are good for being full of flower. And what I'll be doing is planting bulbs in here, and when they're finished, take them out and then have another display which will see me through summer. And one of the beauties of growing bulbs in pots, if they're only going to be temporary, is you can break all the rules. The first thing to do is to cover that drainage hole, otherwise all the compost will fall out. Now, all these bulbs like free draining compost. So whatever compost you use, mix it with either perlite or grit. And I've also added leaf mould because bulbs do really well in leaf mould. So a layer in the bottom. Now the bottom layer, I'm using some tulips. I've got a variety here called Negrita with this nice long stem and a lovely purple flower. And I can pack them in. So we'll pop the bulbs just an inch or two apart, pointy side up. And when you buy tulip bulbs, look for nice big plump bulbs. And the bigger the bulb, the better they will flower. That is our late April display. We cover that up with a layer of compost. So the next layer is going to be daffodils. And what I have here is tete-a-tete. And everything about it is elegant, petite, full of grace. We don't need to worry about blocking the root of the tulips underneath. They will find their way past these bulbs and negotiate a passage. And we also don't need to worry about finding enough food for it. We don't need to add any extra feed to the compost because everything that bulb needs to flower is there now. Now, on top of that, I'm going to put some irises. These are dwarf irises with intense colour, and they just shine like jewels very early in the season. These will flower certainly in February and perhaps last into March, which, of course, is when tete-a-tete will come through. The bulbs are set. Just put them in some reasonably sheltered, reasonably sunny spot, and you can leave them there until the shoots start to appear, and then you put them where you want to display them. But it will only look like that. So if I want it to look great from now, right the way through until the irises start flowering in February, I need to add something on top. And I love pansies and violas. Now, the secret of growing really successful violas and pansies is not to let them dry out too much. So they will need some water. And the bulbs will find their way through the pansies. Don't worry about that. So what we have is a succession of flowers, starting with the dwarf iris in February, and as those die back, the daffodils come up, and they will flower in March and even into April. And finally, in all their glory, the tulips will burst through and come into flower from mid-April into May. And then by the middle of May, they'll all be over, and we can clear it out and use this pot for our summer display. Well, this is looking forward to next spring. But this summer has been particularly good for those of us that grow fruit and vegetables. And Joe's been seeing this in action in allotments all around the land. And this week, he's gone down to an allotment near Bristol.
September is a wonderful time of year for allotments, with the harvest reaching its peak and plot holders reaping rich rewards for all their hard work.
Hello, John.
Hello, Joe.
What a wonderful setting for an allotment.
Oh, it's fantastic.
With the Clifton suspension bridge in the back. Have you sorted that out just for me?
Yeah, I painted it there this morning. A nice piece of scenery as a backdrop.
It's beautiful. These grapes are fantastic.
Well, they
really are.
They've been absolutely amazing this year.
Can I try one?
Absolutely amazing. Please do.
Yeah?
Plenty of them.
Oh, look at those. Oh, that's really good.
You know, we've had a wonderful summer.
Right, you got a... Oh, look at all the squash.
I know, these have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. You've got two varieties here. You've got, I think that one's called Hooligan, which is great. Cheeky little thing. And this one is called Winter Golden Hubbard.
Oh, that's a good name, isn't it? And this is planted on your compost heap, is that right?
It's in a manure heap, yeah. There's some pallets there, and there's all the horse manure in there.
Yeah.
I put 4 plants in there, turn me back, and this is the result.
And these beans are looking good as well.
Yeah.
Wow, look at those.
Well, these are ballottis. I think you can hear
a bit of a rattle.
The seeds are beginning to dry in there, and what we do is when they've really dried off in a couple of weeks, we'll pick all the pods when they look like this one, crack them open, and they're just wonderful in casseroles in the winter. Sausage casserole with ballotti beans. God. It's real, you know, comfort food for a cold winter's day.
It sounds good.
But John doesn't just rely on his beans to get him through the winter. He has something much sweeter to tempt the taste buds.
How long have you been keeping bees?
Well, I started when I was 14. My parents had this wonderful builder guy who used to come in and do, you know, jobs around their house. And I was already interested in bees. He mentioned one day that he was a beekeeper, and I was hooked. I haven't been keeping bees all these years. I returned to it about 5 years ago when I got this allotment, and I had the space.
And is this a busy time of year?
This is the busy time of year. The honey harvest is in full swing.
You know, I've never actually looked inside a beehive.
Come this way.
Fantastic.
We need to get kitted up first.
It's like a onesie, is it? Like a bee
It's a
onesie.
bee onesie. A bit of smoke just to tell them we're coming.
Wow.
And there is a colony of honeybees.
How many would you expect to be in there?
Well, I should think there's probably 20 or 30,000 bees.
20 or 30,000 in each hive. So there's a lot of honey in here then, is there?
There's masses of honey. When it's full, there's about 30 pounds of honey.
30 pounds?
Yes, yeah.
So how much honey do you get a year then?
Well, this year, from these hives, I've had about 230 pounds in weight of honey.
That's unbelievable, just from these hives here?
Well, we've had a wonderful summer.
That's a lot of pots of honey.
Yeah.
I'd never have known they'd produce that much.
Here we go.
Oh, wow, look at that. Look at that honeycomb. Oh, that is amazing. So how do you go about extracting the honey?
Well, first of all, you have to clear the bees out of the honey boxes, and you take all the frames out with no bees on them, and you get one of these things, which is called an uncapping knife. Now, I'm not going to do it, Joe, because the minute I take this off, we'll have bees going everywhere.
Yeah.
But you take a very thin slice of the wax off the top, and if I just take that little bit...
Oh, look at that.
There's the honey.
Oh.
Wonderful golden nectar, and already I can see some little red tongues there. You see how they're all forming a ring around it?
Are they getting a bit noisier, or is it just me getting a bit closer, or are they getting a little bit more agitated?
I think they are. I'm going to pop it back in.
Sounds like a very sensible idea.
There we go.
It's incredibly popular these days, keeping bees. How easy is it?
You do need to know what you're doing. During the summer, you've really got to check your hives, keep on top of disease like varroa, make sure the queen's laying properly. There's a lot of hard work involved. It's looking after livestock, after all.
So have you noticed better crops as a result of the bees?
Oh, yes, definitely. Particularly fruit trees, soft fruit, you know, has been really, really splendid.
So the other allotment holders here, they really benefit from it?
Oh, yes, yeah. The people that I know well down here, you know, they say, oh, your bees are on my plants. So, yeah, it all seems to work well.
They know they're your bees. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, I go over and check, and I recognise each one. Joe, before you go, I've got a little something for you. There we are. That's a jar of this season's honey.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to try it.
Please do.
I'm going to try it on the allotment from whence it came and from the bees that I now know so well. Now.
God, look at that. Way.
Well, that's delicious. A really deep, rich flavour as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that's from the allotment because there's so many different plants here?
Oh, I'm sure it is. There's so much variety, and you're getting that variety coming through in the flavour of the honey.
Well, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, bees, and thanks again for the honey.
Thank you.
Of course, encouraging bees into your garden is best done simply by having lots of plants that they will be attracted to. And they just do good in every possible way. All wildlife, though, is going to be good for a balanced garden. And we made this pond specifically as a wildlife pond, that it would attract a whole range of amphibians and insects that would enrich the whole balance and ecosystem of this garden. And it's worked. Now, this pond does have quite a lot of duckweed, but almost every pond does. I've got an email from John in Surrey. Dear Monty, our pond is being taken over by blanket weed and duckweed. The pond is treated weekly. We prefer natural products, barley straw or other bacterial cultures, which remove the nutrients that the invasive plants need. And every few weeks, all visible blanket weed and duckweed is removed manually. We are desperate for any further advice. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, John, but there's not much more to say because you're doing all the right things. Duckweed and blanket weed form through excessive nutrients in the water. And they're incredibly successful at harnessing them. And the reason why you've got too much nutrient in the water is a combination of things. If you've got any bare soil, certainly above the level of the water or nearby, you get runoff. If you've got plants planted in the water, and we've got various plants planted in baskets in here, they have soil and there's a certain amount of nutrients with them. And any decomposing plants, inevitably, you are going to have some weed. But the thing to do is everything you're saying is if you use bacterial cultures, if you use barley straw and manually just scrape it out and put it to one side, that will help. When you take out any plants, whether they be in a basket or weed, from the pond, you take out insects with them. So give them a chance to get back in the water by putting it on the side for at least 24 hours. And then it makes very good compost. So just keep at it, keep managing it, and accept that it is part of the ecosystem of the pond. And it's not a problem. The wildlife won't mind. Well, I will gently potter in the pond for a little while. But that's it for today. And I'll see you back at Longmeadow next time. Till then, bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, at this time of year, the short day plants are holding the colour in the garden together. Long day plants, which grow and work with the growing light at the beginning of the year, are really dripping away. But if the plant is promoted by heat, such as dahlias or cannas or marigolds, then there's no reason why they won't go on flowering until the first frost comes. But if they go to seed, then that will stop them. So it is really, really important to deadhead as much as possible. And with dahlias, which I think really carry colour better than anything else at this time of year, you can see the difference. This is a bud that's not yet open, and it's fundamentally spherical. And this is a flower that is finished, and it's more or less conical. And if it's pointy and long, you can cut it off. And when you cut, don't just cut near the head, but right down at a leaf, and that will promote more growth. So if you do nothing else in the garden, just wander around deadheading. It's a lovely job, because apart from anything else, you get to see your garden up close and personal. This week, Carol is flying high into a tree canopy to discover why our historic trees are precious homes for wildlife.
Ooh, it's a whole different world.
The Dutch garden designer, Pete Oudolf, gives me an exclusive look around his brand new garden that he's created in Somerset.
Why don't you take one of each you like and just create something beautiful?
And later in the programme, I shall be giving Nigel a good prune. Hey, Nigel? All right. Come on. Come on, Nigel. I'm going to plant a couple of crab apples here in the cottage garden. Cottage garden, of course, can take anything. Anything that looks beautiful and is edible is allowed in. And crab apples do all that. They have lovely blossom quite early in April. And then the foliage is good. They make neat trees, never too big. Often the leaves will turn a good colour in autumn, and of course they have beautiful fruits. Beautiful to look at primarily, but crabapple jelly is delicious, and some varieties make really, really good crabapple jelly. I've chosen two varieties. The first is Comtesse du Paris, which will grow about 4 metres tall, not too big, ideal for a small garden. and the fruits last. So you've got that decoration hanging like baubles right up to the end of the year. And there aren't that many crabs that have good yellow fruits. And it has wonderful pure white blossom in spring. So what's not to like about it? The other one, Everest, has more orangey fruits, makes a fairly round head when it's mature, but also has white blossom. And the important thing is that crab apples are tough, they're hardy, and there's practically no soil or situation that they can't grow in. So almost every garden can accommodate one. Come on, Mush, out the way. As for planting them, what I'm doing is I'm digging a much wider hole than the pot. Plenty of room for the roots to spread, because with any tree, you want the roots to go outwards, not down. The further they go out, the stronger the tree will be and the healthier it will be. Well, so just tease the roots. Don't try and untangle them. Just break them, and that will stimulate fresh growth. Pop that in the hole. Now notice I haven't added any compost or goodness into the planting hole. There are two reasons for this. The first is that we want this tree to grow out into the soil. And if you put compost in the hole, it won't want to leave. Why would it? The sooner those roots get out into the surrounding soil, whatever it's like, the healthier and the stronger and the better it will grow. And the second reason is if you fill a planting hole with compost or manure, it acts as a sponge, and there's a real risk of waterlogging. And once you've got your height and your position, it will need staking. Move the trees completely out of the way. Stake doesn't need to be tall. It can be as short as 2 or 3 feet, because what you're trying to do is support the bottom of the trunk and let the top move around as much as it wants to. And the more it moves, the stronger it will get. And now we can start to put the earth around it. And at this stage, really firm it in well. This is very, very important, that you make sure that those roots are firmly in the ground. And because I've planted it slightly proud of the surface, effectively you're making a bit of a cone. And that's what you want. That's the perfect profile for any tree planting. Next stage is to tie it. You can buy tree ties of various forms. This is the type that I tend to use. You make a figure of 8 so that the tree doesn't rub against the support. Okay, that's planted. Now give it a really good drink. The final stage is to give it a generous mulch. Now this variety, Everest, has peachy-coloured crab apples, and I'll put it in the same position in this border behind me. And between them, I think they'll add colour, shape, and of course fruit to the cottage garden. And the other thing that they do is that they are fabulous pollinators. They attract lots and lots of insects, so they're good for really any garden. But the one thing that neither of these two varieties will do is grow into a large tree. Now, that might be a blessing if you've got a small garden, but there is something magnificent about any huge tree, particularly, actually, if it's growing in a city. And as part of her journey exploring the wildlife that we share our gardens with, Carol has visited Bristol and a garden that contains a spectacular copper beech.
Until 50 years ago, our city streets and gardens were full of big trees. But sadly, they've begun to meet their demise. And that has emphasised what a hugely important resource they are for both the communities here and the wildlife who inhabit our cities and gardens. Since he was a young boy, James Aldred has been obsessed with trees. This love has taken him all around the world, from the Amazon to Asia, exploring the canopies that tower above us. Isn't it true to say, James, that without trees, the we wouldn't be here, would we? They're the kind of lungs of the world, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you could strip away all of the wood and you could see the water that's being carried up through via a capillary action and transpiration, you'd see a fountain of water here, and of course that has a massively cooling effect on the urban environment.
But it all starts down here. This wonderful leaf litter, which many people think is a nuisance, is an actually huge benefit for all those creatures. For a start, all the things that snuffle around in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all there for a reason. They're all eating all these lovely little invertebrates, like this lovely little woodlouse here. And the woodlouse is, I mean, it needs moisture to breathe. It breathes through gills, essentially, and this leaf litter locks that moisture into the ground and provides a microclimate and a very important habitat.
I suppose one of the most important creatures in that kind of chain is the earthworm, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Charles Darwin had nothing but praise for our humble little earthworm.
Worms play a huge role in breaking down fallen leaves. Some of them live on the soil surface, feeding on the decomposing leaf litter. Others live in vertical burrows in the soil, but they come up to the surface at night to feed on fallen leaves, which they drag down. The burrowing and feeding of all worms improves the soil, mixing the layers, making it more aerated, providing excellent conditions for roots to grow, benefiting our gardens immensely. Just so I can truly experience what our tree has to offer the city's wildlife, James, a professional tree climber as well as an expert on trees, is taking me up in the branches of this rather large garden beech. It's just so fascinating, isn't it, to be up here and see what's actually going on.
I think this is pretty squirrelish.
Yeah.
We're in Squirrelville here. All of this is quite deliberately placed, and there's a whole load of beech mass which has been stashed in there.
But this is the best bit. This is the point where a big branch has come down at some stage.
Correct, yeah. So it's come out of here like a socket, really, and the tree now is busy trying to cover it up. I mean, all of this is the broken down remains of wood mixed with leaves.
Yeah.
It's the perfect hanging basket. Right, let's see how deep it goes.
It's right down there.
Right, that's the bottom. So that's right up from the bottom. Look at all that. That's where the wood is breaking down, being turned into the soil.
Really, really squelchy, isn't it?
Yes, it smells pretty funky as well.
It does, doesn't it? It must be heaven in the sky.
It is.
For all those little insects.
It is. Within here, we have a lot of the same things that we have down at ground level. Maybe not the worms, but certainly all the wood lice and earwigs up the top and things. But you've probably got nematodes, all sorts down there.
But all food for the birds who live in the tree too.
Tree creepers love it, especially old pollarded beeches like this, because it's lovely old wrinkled elephantine-style skin, so they can get right in here and pull all the little beasties out. And of course, you know, the only way a holly, for example, gets here to be seeded in this sort of soil is via a bird. So it would have eaten one of the berries off one of these bushes down here, would have come up here all roosted and...
wipes its beak. Well, this is fascinating, but can we go a bit higher and see what's happening up there?
We certainly can.
As you go up, it just changes, doesn't it?
All of the little cracks, crevices, all the breakout cavities, all of the dead wood, it's wonderful habitat, you know.
And as far as the blue tits are concerned, of course, there are all manner of caterpillars and aphids, because blue tits love those, don't they?
And it's also perfectly timed, isn't it? You don't see the blue tits nesting until those caterpillars are around.
Right,
you know,
and you don't see the caterpillars out until the beech leaves are out.
Exactly, yeah. They're very important urban corridors, really, the canopy of trees, really. Things can get through, across, between gardens, between larger inner urban green spaces. Let's keep on going.
Yes.
So this is a great perspective. This is one of the things that I love doing with the pollarded beech. At this sort of height, if you now look down...
Oh, wow!
Isn't that fantastic?
Oh, it's beautiful. I think when you're up here, you begin to get some idea of just what it must be like to be one of the creatures who lives up here.
I know. It is an island in the sky, and its only real connection to down there is obviously the tree trunk, but really, in terms of most of the habitat, it's here. inside this bubble, inside this canopy. And of course, it's a lovely way for them to feel safe whilst they're surveying what's going on below.
Right.
And by getting up high, they'll use these as perches to sing from. I mean, thrushes, blackbirds. Anything with leaves is doing wonderful things for your gardens, whether it's a beech, a silver birch, a poplar, or an oak, whatever it is, it's all good.
And not only is it providing infinite variety of wonderful food and shelter for wildlife, but for us all, it just makes you feel better, doesn't it?
It does.
Thank goodness for trees.
Yeah.
We saw in the beech that Carol was looking at how you got a nice neat callus where a branch has snapped off. The damage that's caused to this apple won't heal quite so easily. It's a variety called Arthur Turner. It's an early cooker, a big apple, and it's slightly prone to breaking and has broken badly because the apple harvest has been so huge and so early. And this has left a very jagged edge, huge surface area, pointing upwards so the rain can get in. That will bring fungus, disease, and all kinds of problems may ensue. So I need to sort it out. The first thing to do is to cut back to clean wood and make the cut at an angle so that any rainwater drains off it. So we'll just cut like that. That piece of wood, with its ripped and torn surface all the way around, has taken off. However, this branch is ripping off, and that does need to come down. So I'm going to try and clean that up and see if I can leave a clean wound that will heal itself. It's not the cleanest wound because there is a hole in there that is a possible source of problems. But I would say, when you have wounds like this, don't paint them. Leave them exposed to the air and let them callus and heal naturally, because the dangers of trapping in any fungus, disease, or even just moisture is far greater than the danger of an exposed wound. Actually, while I'm up here, I am going to cut off below this wound. Right, I must tidy all this up, but the first thing I'm going to do is pick up some windfalls. They'll last for a week or two at the most, but essentially you want to use them up as quickly as you can. And Arthur Turner is a really good breakfast apple. Stewed apple for breakfast is one of life's great delights. Mix in a little bit of yogurt, maybe a spoonful of honey. Fantastic. Now, even if you're not gathering Arthur Turner windfalls for breakfast, here's some other things you can be doing. If you sow spinach seeds now, it'll give you a harvest of baby leaves this autumn and more mature leaves next spring. Sprinkle the seeds thinly in shallow drills. Draw the soil back over them and water them in well. Then cover them with a cloche or fleece, and they should germinate in the next week or two. Now is a good time to take penstemon cuttings as an insurance against winter losses. Choose nice strong stems that don't have a flowering bud and cut them to about 6 to 9 inches long. Put the cuttings straight into a polythene bag until you're ready to pot them up. Then strip off the lower leaves and make a clean cut just below a leaf node. Pop them around the edge of a pot using a free-draining compost. Put them somewhere warm and then give them a water. Mist them daily so they don't dry out. Unlike apples, pears should be harvested before they ripen. Hold the still firm fruit and gently raise it to the horizontal. If it comes away in your hand, it's ready. Handle it very gently and store in a cool, dark place. Then bring out a few at a time to a sunny spot on a windowsill to ripen more quickly. As soon as they are ripe, eat them immediately. The garden might be gently declining, but grasses are coming to their very best now, and they last easily till Christmas, looking good. And one of my favourites is the Miscanthus malpartus, with its purple plumes of flower, which then change colour to gold as we go further into autumn. And one of the first people to bring grasses into use as border plants was Pete Oudolf, who's now one of the most famous garden designers in the world. And the gallery Hauser and Wirth has commissioned him to create a garden for their new gallery down in Bruton in Somerset. And a week or so ago, I went down for an exclusive look. Pete, when I walked in here, I saw this big open site, which initially looks like just one giant border. What led you to this?
I thought I'd make it a field of perennials. So it's not really a border. It is perennials that don't grow very tall, so that wherever you are, you can overlook the area and see everything in a different perspective.
It's easy to see Pete's overall idea when you look at the original plan for the garden, which is a work of art in itself.
You see that the drawing is divided up in 1, 2, 3, 4 different ideas.
Right.
This is a planting which has a basic planting of where plants emerge from. We call that a matrix.
So matrix is where you have one dominant plant.
Yeah, ground cover or sort of basic plant where all the other plants or little groups emerge from.
Okay, so whereas these are in clumps.
We call that a block plant.
Block planting.
I put lists together on the side with names that possible can use in that sort of particular idea. It's like taking a color and pick a plant and put it. I start here with this one plant and just put it everywhere. Next plant, pam, pam, pam. Next plant.
Right, right. This garden is still very young, but even after just a few months, the real thing is every bit as striking as Pete's plan. Now this, I guess, is matrix planting. So the dominating is this grass, which, to be honest, I don't recognize. Well, what is this grass?
Sporobel. It's a North American grass, which is a prairie grass. It's very durable, very reliable, and it's recently introduced in the UK.
And what about maintenance? Is it high maintenance?
Everything we see here, whether it's the block planting or this, has a lower level of maintenance when it is grown in. If the soil is good enough, you look at the plants and look healthy. I wouldn't use compost or whatever, a mushroom compost. I would use a neutral mulch, like pine bark, very small fraction, not too thick. But the good thing is these plants will cover ground. There's not much space for mulch.
No. Okay. At what point do you cut it all back?
People ask me, when do I have to cut back? I say, when you're bored with the plants you see.
This is one of your block planting beds. There we have a great block of Helenium.
I love it because after flowering it still looks good. You know? These little seed heads, they stay for over the winter. So it's all about the dynamics too. You know, It's about when they start till flower and after flowering into the winter. Yeah. So it's all about the seasons.
What goes on in here in spring? Because it won't look anything like this, will it?
We're going to put bulbs in 2 months, but a lot. Eremerus, Camassia, Allium, Crocus, and what else we put in. But we do that in masses.
if I have a small back garden, but I like this style of planting, what's the smallest scale it will work on? Do I need clumps of 5 or 3? How much can I take it down?
We can take it down to single plants.
Really?
Yeah, really. Gardening doesn't have to do with scale. It has to do with, you know, how you put things together. Let's say you have a small garden, you love all the plants here.
Yeah.
Why don't you take one of each you like and just create something beautiful with it? I could do it, you know. In this scale, I can do a lot wrong. On a smaller scale, you're happy to potter around with your plant the next year and say, okay, it was in the wrong place and we put it there now. That's gardening. That is how I started, you know. If you don't do things wrong, it will never go right.
Come on in, come on. Now, I've had a letter, hope it doesn't get too soggy in the rain, from Martin in Cardiff. And Martin says, "Dear Monty, around this time last year, Monty revealed plans to create a box topiary of Nigel in the garden. My children, Owen and Menna, hello Owen and Menna, watch gardeners well with me every other Friday when they come to stay, and almost without fail ask whether the statue of Nigel will be on this week. Do you have an update on its progress, and are there any plans to show it before the end of the series?" Well, the statue of Nigel, the great statue of Nigel, not made out of box, made out of yew. And there is a really significant difference, not least that it won't get box blight like every other bit of box in this garden. But here's the model. So we've got the head, so a nice long back, and Nigel posing. Good boy. So we've got a back along there. The head will come up and then go along. So at this stage, I can start cutting quite a lot of it away. So the first thing is to take this off. And like any plant, yew wants to establish a leader. And where you have a leader, like this one, it suppresses the growth of the shoots below it. So by cutting off that leader, I'll make these grow more strongly. That is now the top of Nigel's head, and his jaws and mouth and nose will come from these 3 here. So I'm going to have to train those in, which means, and we've got a little bit, we've got ears and things to go there. I won't need that, so that can come back, and I won't need that, and I won't need that. The point that I'm trying to do is to create a woody framework. What? Oh, I can tell you something the topiary will have to have, and that's a ball. It'll either have to be a ball just in front of him, with him fixated on it, or else in his mouth. Which would you prefer? In your mouth, I guess. So, if that's the head coming up there, we can take this back. We can take this back. Now, if we've got the head, that means the chest is coming down, so we can cut that back, and this. OK, let's tie that in. Essentially, I'm making Nigel's spine. There. That can get tied in too. Now, at this stage, it obviously doesn't look any more like Nigel than it did half an hour ago, but we're beginning to get the sense of a framework. And that really is the secret of nice, strong topiary. Cut it and shape it and build it up as you go. You can be put on the compost heap. It will compost down. Of course, not all fruits have to justify their place in the garden by their produce. The banana that I put in after seeing it at Hampton Court has been fabulous from the day I planted it. Really looks good, but I'll never get a banana from it. In fact, it won't overwinter. So when the weather gets colder, I'll be lifting it and taking it in. But that's for later. No more time left today, I'm afraid. But I'll see you back here at Longmeadow next time. Till then, bye-bye.